Welcome back. The interim final rule for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program is out, and it includes a wrinkle for companies that want or need to comply. Eric Crusius is a partner at Holland Knight. Eric, thanks for coming on. The wrinkle that I'm referring to is one that you pointed me to about self-certification. I thought the whole point of this was that you didn't self-certify anymore. Tell me what's going on here, please.
Right, this is actually an additional requirement to CMMC. So it looks like there are kind of two tracks of certification requirements. There's the CMMC third-party certification requirement, which we were all expecting with this rule. And then we heard some rumblings, but not confirmed, but now it is confirmed that there's going to be a certification required with respect to compliance with NIST Special Publication 800-171. And that, for most contractors, is going to be a self-certification that they have to do every 3 years. If they're kind of considered low risk, medium risk, and high risk contractors are going to have a DoD entity certify them for compliance with NIST 800-171.
All right, I'm a total amateur, but the term interim final rule sounds like a legal term. What does that mean?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of legal terms that the government uses in the federal acquisition system. But interim final rule is a little bit different than a final rule. Here, we never had a proposed rule. So what's going to happen is the rule will come into effect at the end of November, and folks will have an opportunity to comment on it. But there's a period where there's going to be comments coming in and considered by DoD and will not be implemented yet. So we have this interim final rule that's going to be in effect before any comments are taken from the public. And that's the biggest difference. When you go through a proposed rule stage, the rule isn't effective yet. And DoD takes in the comments and considers them and before issuing a final rule. Here, we have an interim final rule which will be in effect even without comments.
So the way that the rule is written, the way that it was released today, that's it. Companies need to follow that the way that it's written, but it's still possible that it could change over time. Am I interpreting all of that correctly?
You're 100% correct. And with regard to these requirements, it's not going to impact every DoD contractor. It will just depend on what kind of information they have and which contracts they have. For instance, with the 800-171 certification requirement, self-certification or DoD certification, it's going to mostly depend on the possession of information that will trigger compliance with 800-171. With the CMMC requirement, it's going to be required that it goes into your contract before it's effective. Both will require to be in your contract to be effective. So we're looking at kind of a gradual rollout of these requirements, but they're fairly significant for folks who have this information.
So what is different about this than what you and I have talked about the possibilities could be in the past, Eric?
So a couple of differences are, one, with the 800-171 kind of certification, that's going to be required to be flowed down. And it's interesting, this creates kind of a dual track certification program. And if you're doing a self-certification for compliance with 800-171, you better make sure you're right, because sooner or later there's going to be a CMMC third-party certification where a third-party assessor is going to come in and review your compliance with 800-171. And if those two things don't match together, that's a risk area for a company. And I think this whole kind of dual certification system is something that is quite a bit different than what we were expecting with the CMMC rule. As far as the CMMC rule alone is considered, I don't think there's a ton that's surprising within the rule itself. We knew that certifications were going to happen every 3 years. We knew that they were going to have to happen upon award. We knew it was going to have to be flowed down all the way through the supply chain. So subcontractors are. The rule, the way it's written, one interesting thing is that it's not entirely clear who's going to make the determination on what level a subcontractor needs to have. The way I initially read the rule, and it just came out for public preview today, is that the prime contractor will make the assessment on what level the subcontractor will have, and will have to ensure that that subcontractor has the correct level. But it's not entirely clear to me if DoD will play a role in that or not. It doesn't look like it from the way the rule is written, but things can change.
Katie Arrington, the leader of CMMC at the Pentagon, was on the weekend edition of Government Matters talking about all of these issues. She said the first cohort of auditors will be hitting the street soon. They've graduated from their first training. What's the timing look like, or what cues do you get from this rule about what the timing could be for the companies that have to comply?
So as far as the CMMC part goes, this rule is going to be effective at the end of November. So that means that this can start appearing in RFQs and RFPs towards the end of November. So DoD is going to be very careful about which contracts they choose to put this in, but there will be some contractors that will have to have a CMMC certification for contracts that are awarded after the late November timeframe. So this is starting to roll out. This is starting to be real. It's not going to affect a huge slice of contractors to begin with, but you're talking about a few thousand initially. That's not insignificant, but it's much smaller than the entire defense industrial base, which is hundreds of thousands of contractors. But over the next 5 years, we're going to see it roll out to all those hundreds of thousands of contractors. So whether you're in part of this initial cohort or not, you're going to have to start paying attention.
Eric Crusius, thanks very much as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.